Carlton Hudson with On Demand Labs. What I'm going to be doing is showing you how to solve the hot standby router protocol lab where the active router becomes unresponsive. If you're watching this video on YouTube and you want to be able to do this lab, all you have to do is leave your email address in the comment section and I will email you over the Word document for this specific lab. Now before you do the lab, you want to open up GNS3 and build out the topology that you see here. So if I come over to GNS3, I have this exact topology already built out. You want to make sure that you get 4 routers. The routers that I'm using are C7200 routers and they're running version 15 code. So you can use any 4 routers you want, just make sure they're using version 15 and make sure they're interconnected exactly how you see here. So make sure router 2's gig 00 is plugged into router 1's gig 00. So the port should be connected exactly how you see here. Okay, once you have that done, when you scroll down, you're going to have the configurations that you're going to copy and paste onto the routers to start with. So let's take this configuration for router 1 and let's paste it. Right, let's take this configuration for router 2 and let's paste it. Right, let's take this configuration for router 3 and let's paste it. And let's take this configuration for router 4 and let's paste it. Alright, so once we do that, we just want to verify an Eigrp pairing was formed between routers 1, 2, and 3. So let's just type show IP Eigrp neighbors. So router 4, he's not running Eigrp, so he's not going to have no neighbors. 3 has a neighborship going over to 1. 2 has a neighborship going over to 1. And 1 has a neighbor relationship going to both 2 and 3. Okay, we also want to verify that this prefix right here is being learned on both router 2 and router 3. So let's do a show IP route Eigrp. Let's come over to router 2. And here's router 1's loopback. And the next hop is router 1. And then on router 3, here's router 1's loopback. And the next hop is router 1. And we also want to verify that router 1 is learning this prefix from both 2 and 3. So we come over to router 1. Here's that prefix right here. And you can see he's load balancing between both 3 and 2. So once you do that, then you can scroll down and you can begin the lab. So step 1, you're going to configure HSRP on this interface on router 2 and router 3 using these configuration settings. So you want to use HSRP group 1. The VIP should be 192.168.234.1. Router 2 is going to have a priority of 200. 3 is going to have a priority of 150. Okay, so let's start on router 2. Let's go to that gig link. The command is going to be standby, and then you specify the group number, which we said was 1. And if you want to specify the IP address of the VIP, the keyword you're going to use or the argument you're going to use is IP. Then you specify what is the IP address of the VIP, which is this. There we go. And then if you want to specify the priority, you say standby, you put the group number. This time you're going to use the keyword priority. Then you specify what priority value you want to assign. Okay, it can be any number between 0 and 255. We said 200. There we go. Let's now configure router 3. It's going to be the same thing. I'm going to say standby 1 IP, then the IP address of the VIP, then standby 1 priority, and then 150. Okay. Now we want to type this command show standby gig 1/0 on both R2 and R3. We should see router 2 in a state of active and router 3 in a state of standby. So let's copy and paste this onto router 2. Let's copy and paste this on the router 3. So 2 should be in a state of active, which he is, and 3 should be in a state of standby, which he is. Okay, you see you get a lot more information here too, like what's the IP address of the VIP, what's the virtual MAC address, and here you have the active router and their IP and their priority. So whichever router has this IP, which happens to be router 2, that's the active router. Standby router is local, so that means router 3 is still standby router, and this is the priority value, and this is what is configured. Okay, but the most important thing is router 3 is standby and 2 is active. Okay, that's what we wanted to see. Right, now we want to verify router 4 can ping the loopback of router 1 and traffic is being routed through router 2. So come over to router 1, do a show IP interface brief. This is the IP address of his loopback. This is what we want to ping on router 4. So let's do a ping over to that IP. Okay, so had to do ARP first, so that's why that one ping failed, but as you can see, we have successful connectivity. And let's do a trace route just to verify how we're routing, and it looks like we're going through router 2. Okay, and that's because router 2 is the active router. So any traffic destined to this IP right here, which is the VIP, is going to go through router 2 because he's the active router. Right. Next, what we want to do is start a continuous ping on router 3 to this IP address right here. And if you don't know how to do that, you can just simply copy and paste this command onto router 3. So let's do that. All right, so the first ping is going to fail because he has to ARP, but you can see we started getting success. All right, next what we want to do is shut down the gig 1/0 link on router 2, and this should start causing pings on router 3 to fail. So right now everything looks good. Let's come shut down this link. If we come back over to router 3, the pings were successful, but now they're starting to time out. Okay, so this IP that we're pinging is no longer reachable. Right, as you can see, pings are timing out. Okay, now we want to type show standby gig 1/0 on router 3 to verify he is now the active router. Okay, if you want to break this ping, all you got to do is type Control-Shift-6 all together. All right, so let's do show standby gig 1/0. Router 3 is now the active router. Okay, that's what we want to see. Okay, so now it says verify router 4 can still ping the loopback of router 1 and traffic is now being routed through router 3. So let's come over to router 4. Let's do our ping again. Still successful, and let's do our trace route again. Okay, now he's going through 3. So previously we were going through 2, now we're going through 3 because 3 is the active router. So now any traffic going to the VIP, this IP right here, is going to be received on router 3. Right, now what we want to do is start another continuous ping on router 3 to this IP right here. So all you got to do is come back up and copy and paste this again. Let's copy and paste this on the 3. Right, so you're going to see the pings are failing right now. Right, then if we come back down, it says we want to re-enable the gig 1/0 interface on router 2. You should see the pings begin to be successful. So right now they're failing. Let's do a no shut. Let's come over to router 3. Eventually they should start succeeding, and they do. Okay, so now we can ping that IP again. Let's go ahead and kill that. Then it wants us to type show standby gig 1/0 on router 2 and verify it is in a state of standby and preemption is disabled. So let's come over to router 2. Let's do a show standby gig 1/0, and he is in the standby state. And you see right here it says preemption is disabled. Okay, so we come back here. It says right here when preemption is disabled, a router cannot overtake the active status from another router with a lower priority. So you can type show IP or show standby gig 1/0 and it will tell you if preemption is enabled or not. So when we did our show standby gig 1/0, we saw where preemption was disabled. So even though the active router, who is this guy, has a priority of 150 and 2 has a priority of 200, which is higher, 2 cannot overtake the status of active from this guy because preemption is disabled. Okay, so now what we're going to do is enable preemption on R2 and verify it resumes the role of active with preemption enabled. So let's go back to that interface. The way you're going to do this is standby. You put the group number and then you use the keyword preempt. Okay, overthrow lower priority active routers. Okay, so now preemption is turned on. Now it says to verify the role of active for router 2, or verify that router 2 resumes the role of active with preemption enabled. Let's come over to router 2. Let's do a show standby gig 1/0. So router 2 is active and preemption is enabled. And you can see standby router is now this IP, which is the IP of router 3. Okay, now it says to verify router 4 can ping the loopback of router 1, and traffic is now being routed back through router 2. So let's come back to router 4. Let's do our ping again. It's still successful. Let's do our trace route. And previously we were going through 3. Now we're going back through 2 because 2 is back online and he has resumed the role of active. And you have successfully verified how HSRP works when the active router stops responding. So congratulations to you. You have officially completed this lab.